Did Christmas, the holiday season, leave you feeling a little bit strapped for cash? Maybe you're just looking for some good game deals. Either way, you've come to the right place. Sit back and relax. I'm going to take you through quickly some of the best cheap deals you can grab for $10 or less in the Steam winter sale for 2022. And first and foremost, we have Hades at 50% off. With a sequel on the way, Hades 2 being recently announced, Hades is a fantastic pickup and now at a really great price, the best we've ever seen on Steam. It's a godlike, roguelike dungeon crawler. Aspects pulled together from all sorts of other wonderful titles that have come from the developers as well, Bastion, Transistor. It's a brilliant game. It has some fantastic voice acting and progression, and the gameplay itself is incredibly smooth. I highly recommend Hades, just like I recommend the next addition to my list. This is The Forest, and it's a little bit of an older game. Coming in at 77% off in the Steam Winter Sale for 2022, though, if you're looking for open world, survival, crafting, then this is probably the place for you. And while there are, of course, many other great selections that you could pick up in this open world genre, Rust is a fairly popular one, for example, that's actually at a reasonable discount in the sale, I would recommend that you try The Forest. It's slightly older than the rest, not by much, and it really feels still like a brilliant game to this day. I'd recommend you check it out. It's actually only for the change that you'd find behind the couch as well. However, here we have the Valve Complete Pack, and at 96% off, this is really where your chump change will be spent. Now, of course, it includes what we're looking at here, Portal 2 and Portal 1 as well, but more broadly, this is the complete pack. So you've got Half-Life 1 and 2, Portal 1 and 2, Left 4 Dead 1 and you guessed it, 2 as well. Team Fortress is the same. It's got all of the classic Valve titles, and at 96% off, if you don't own these, you probably should. They're basically free at this point, and really any good Steam library should have them. My next recommendation is a little bit more on the fun side, and reviewed overwhelmingly positively for good reason. It's Stardew Valley at 40% off. Just me who thinks it's more fun? Oh, I'll let that simmer in the comments below. Either way, this is a farming simulator. It's a lifestyle simulator as well, though. It's got multiplayer, but it's also a fantastic single-player experience, and on the go, a shared co-op. It's got it all, and it's really brilliant. It's a pixel graphic RPG, build up a farm, and have a wonderful time. But maybe not quite as action-packed as the next edition on our list. With the Rising Empire, this is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and at 88% off, this is a game that if you're a regular on the channel, you've heard me recommend before, and I'm sorry about that, but it really does need to be told. This, like other editions on my list, has a sequel coming out soon, and if you're looking for a story-rich, Souls-like RPG, one of the best Star Wars stories ever told, I believe, look no further than this one, everybody. It seriously should be checked out if you haven't played it already on Game Pass. And next up on my list, a slightly lighter edition, this is Gang Beasts, and it's 60% off, around $7 US. Gang Beasts is a hilariously funny multiplayer party game. It's very colorful, it's physics-based, and as you can see, you basically take control of one of these characters, and by flailing around their limbs, grabbing onto objects or other players around you, whether they're bots, real people, local couch co-op, or maybe someone further afield online, you're basically just trying to throw them off. The map has interesting physics and environmental factors that will keep you coming back to play more. Honestly, trust me, it's a good time. You'll probably have a laugh with it. And if you're into a more serious planning of cities, then Cities Skylines should be another pickup for you. Like Jedi Fallen Order, Cities Skylines is another game that I've recommended before, but I make no apologies for it. Seriously, it's a fantastic city builder, and actually at only 70% off, it comes in at just slightly less than the rest of Paradox's wonderful catalogue, which are mostly 75% off. So if you're looking for more broader strategy games like Crusader Kings franchise, Hearts of Iron, Europa Universalis, of course you can look at those, but here we have the best city builder simulation building and management title on the platform, I believe. Has a wonderful community and modding support behind it too. My next pick, though, is a bit different and unusual on almost every level. This, everybody, is a new game called Potion Craft. It's an indie game, and at 20% off, I acknowledge this won't be for everyone, but hear me out. It has some quite unique visuals to it, inspired, as you can see, by medieval books and manuscripts, art styles. Here we basically sell our potions to the townsfolk, people around us. while role-playing as an artisan or a weasel, a dark master, or, as they say, whoever else you wish to be. Basically, you run a store, haggle with customers, potentially build up relationships with them. The playability, the simulation, and the crafting elements are what really pull this one through for me, though. Every playthrough is a little bit different. Every recipe, every creation, every shop, and of course, every customer as well. It's a fairly relaxing single player experience, and I think if you come at it acknowledging that that's what you're going to get, with a lot of crafting, simulation, and its overall quirky style, keeps me quite interested in it. Yes, it's a single player experience, but the control that I have over recipes, attracting customers, and experimenting more broadly with all kinds of combinations has kept me interested and wanting a little more. Although perhaps not quite as much as wanting to play Disco Elysium. At 75% off, it's a great deal. Of course, everything in this video is. But what sets this one apart is that it's very likely been many people's game of the year, perhaps for many years in a row. It's an RPG, and a story-rich one at that. And here we have the final cut of this role-playing game, where you're a detective, and there's a skill-based system sort of set around you, and an entire chaotic city for you to navigate within. It's a little bit, of course, set, and there's a story that goes along with it, but as you can see from this Game Awards trailer, it brings in a whole load of interesting elements to actually quite a picturesque looking and unique looking game. Characters, moida, bribes, it's all there, and I think you'll love it. And I think you'll also love Dishonored. This time, of course, with offering something for everybody in this video, we're leaning into a more first-person action-based experience, where you play as a supernatural assassin. Dishonored has a wonderful follow-up as well, so if you're interested in delving a little bit deeper into a franchise, this can be a great place to start. With some overwhelmingly positive reviews, and rightly so. It's a stealth, first-person action game. It's dark, though, so brace yourself. It could also be a little brutal. But for literally only a couple of bucks, it's an easy starting point into a game that can actually, on the right system, look really, really good still, despite being 10 years old. Next, we have, on a completely different note and level and vibe, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator at 76% off to just edge out the rest. This is a sandbox simulation game. It is, of course, really physics-based, and the physics system in the game is very impressive for what is, of course, a little bit of its kind of tongue-in-cheek, funny sort of game. Indie developed, it is a real little gem. At the moment, at 76% off, you can get it for about $4 as well. You can muck around in single player, set up in a sandbox, download mods, or engage in multiplayer battles. It's a nice little bit of fun. Unlike Civilization 6 at 90% off, which is not a little bit of fun, but instead a whole load more. Of course, campaigns here will take a little bit longer, and the battles may not be as totally accurate as the previous entry on the list. Civilization 6 is a 4X historical strategy game, and the base game is 90% off. So if you haven't picked it up at some point over the many years since it released in 2016 for free across Epic Games or goodness knows where else, it still remains a fantastic time to buy it. And of course, for Axis, the team behind it have reminded us of that with recent additions, including the free edition of a new alternate leader for Rome, and of course, the paid DLC that's releasing over 6 months. They're calling that one the Leader Pass. All of it delivers more gameplay features and Civilization's leaders primarily. And if you like Civ 6 and you buy the initial entry, you can pick up the complete edition and get all of that content and so much more. It's a great upgrade for anybody that might want to try the waters here with a cheap entry. Speaking of cheap entries, I'm a big fan, and the next entry on our list is Dead by Daylight. It's the second more horror, dark, scary inclination on the list, but don't be fooled. This is an online multiplayer game that you will have seen before. It did the rounds on YouTube a long time ago. The premise is essentially, and it still is actually, by the way, the premise is essentially that it's a 4v1 horror game. One person takes the role of the savage killer, and the other 4 players are trying to survive and escape and avoid being caught. It's obviously not an entirely unique premise, but having released in 2016, Dead by Daylight is one of the more OG approaches, and Also, I believe, anyway, one of the best. It's a really fun experience. Of course, you will need friends, or at least foes, to play this one with online PvP, cross-platform multiplayer as well, though. It is a really enjoyable experience, fairly easy to play, pick up on most systems, and I would recommend that you check it out if you're looking for something a little bit more horrific than some of the other entries on this list. Last but not least, though, I have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The complete edition also is 80% off, though it doesn't come quite in under $10. I'll leave it up to you which one you pick up, but either way, you really ought to pick up The Witcher 3. Having recently been updated for next generation consoles performance, this is the open world RPG you've been looking for. And of course, it's backed up by a whole host of rich lore surrounded by shows or books or however you want to consume your multimedia. Look, I'm not judging. It's out there. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a fantastic RPG game, though, if you put all of the rest of that aside. And, as I said earlier, with the recent upgrades, now seems like a good time to pick it up. For around $10 you can pick up the base game, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, or if you'd like to spend a couple of extra dollars, you can also stretch to get the complete edition. That'll get you the DLC and the stories, the worlds that come along with it. And that concludes my list for the best picks for the Steam Winter Sale for 2022. Now, of course, there'll be other best deal picks that come in under $10. I'd encourage you to share them below. And if I haven't already covered them in a couple of other videos that I've made on the Steam sale, you may very well be making a fresh recommendation. So thank you for sharing, and I will see all of you in the next one. Happy New Year, and see you next time.